In the former Soviet Union, there is a former island named Vorozhdzhenya Island in the Aral Sea. The Aral Sea slowly receded due to Soviet mismanagement, diverting much of the water to the vast collective farms that the Soviets had established in the Uzbek SSR. As it was the Soviets' ambition to become the top cotton producer in the world, these collective farms grew mainly cotton, which is one of the most intensive crops in terms of water requirement in the world. This island was one of the main sites of the Soviet Union's biological weapons program. Here they tested many types of bacteria and viruses, such as anthrax and the plague. The Soviets named this test site Aralsk 7. The island did not appear on Soviet maps. This island was the subject of many CIA reports and much aerial photography during the course of the Cold War, as the Americans had reason to suspect that this was in fact a bioweapons test site. The Americans photographed the island hundreds of times, detailing each incremental change. Let's take a look at the northern half of the island, using Google Earth. Here we can see the remains of Barkhan airfield in the northwest, the town of Kantubek to the east, and thirdly, the remains of the laboratory itself to the south. Here I have overlaid the historical satellite images over the modern-day Google Maps view. The first thing we can see in the north is the abandoned airfield. The only airfield in the Soviet Union with runways intersecting in this starburst pattern. It was built to accommodate the unpredictable weather of the region. To the east is the town of Kantubek. This town accommodated the personnel and their families. The town is thought to have had a population at its peak of around 1,000 people. Until 2019, the town of Kantubek was still standing. Although, at some point between 2019 and 2021, the Uzbek government demolished the town along with the laboratory and any other buildings on the island. All that now remains are the foundations of the buildings. In the southeast corner of the island, we can observe a surprisingly well-used looking road, next to what looks like some military trenches, probably used as a testing site. Just to the southeast of these trenches, in an area which would have formerly been underwater, we can find what really sparked my interest in this island. The use of the island as a chemical weapons test site is quite well documented, and you can find many videos and much information online about it. There are a series of craters here, hundreds of meters across. These craters are not documented or mentioned anywhere. They're also not mentioned in the CIA reports, which I showed earlier. I decided to try and find out when these craters first appeared. What I ended up doing is taking a look at the time-lapse satellite photography, and we can see that these craters didn't suddenly appear at some point after the sea had already dried. They actually gradually emerged from the sea. So it seems that whatever the Soviets were testing here prior to the first image, which is 1984, they must have been testing underwater in secret. And as the sea slowly withdrew, the looser soil within the impact zone was eroded, exposing the true size of the crater. What's really fascinating is the size of these craters. These are absolutely huge. The hugest is 177 meters across. I'm not sure what kind of conventional weapons could produce a crater this huge. This led me to believe that these could be the craters from a nuclear test. To get some perspective, let's look at another nuclear test site. The test site of Semipalatinsk in the Kazakh steppe. As we can see, the craters here, the largest of which is only about 100 meters across, are about half the size of the craters in the former bay at Novorozdenia Island. This begs the question, were nuclear weapons tested on the seabed of the Aral Sea? If not, were these conventional weapons? And if so, what weapons could produce such huge craters? Is it possible that if these were nuclear, something as significant as a nuclear testing ground has escaped scrutiny since the fall of the Soviet Union? There are also other questions, such as why the government has divided the former seabed up into a huge grid pattern since 2014. Due to the presence of some much smaller, more recent-looking craters on the seabed, I assume that this is probably the military using this deserted plain as an artillery range. However, it is possible that this could be part of a decontamination effort, similar to that undertaken in Chernobyl, where the topsoil was dug up and reburied elsewhere. This seems to be supported, as when following the eastern road, we can find 3 what appear to be disposal sites near the remaining portion of the Aral Sea. These sites appear to contain some locations where it looks like topsoil has been buried, and also some water features, small pools possibly containing the extremely strong bleach which is required to neutralize anthrax. They also look very similar to the evidence we can find on the island of the 2001 American mission, with the approval of the Uzbek government to dispose of any anthrax which was left after the Soviets hastily left the island. Here we can see what I believe to be the remnants of that mission, a long trench which the anthrax was thrown into and then covered in extremely strong bleach, along with a water pool that looks very similar to the 3 disposal sites, near the last remaining portion of the Aral Sea. There really is no way of ultimately finding out if nuclear weapons were tested on the seabed of the Aral Sea, except possibly traveling to these craters with a Geiger counter. Regardless, I hope that this speculation was entertaining, and all the best.